"Sir, step out of the vehicle, now." That's all he heard before the barrel of a gun kissed his temple, in front of the very person he was sworn to protect, a top White House advisor. And in that moment, everything changed. Not because he broke the law, but because of the color of his skin. And what these officers didn't know was that the man they just pulled over could bring down their entire department. Where are you watching from? Drop it in the comments. We love to see how far our stories travel. Don't forget to subscribe, turn on notifications, and give this story a like. Your support helps us tell the stories they try to silence. It was supposed to be a smooth ride. Early morning sunlight spilled through the tinted windshield of the black Lincoln Continental, gliding through Virginia's Route 267 with quiet elegance. Michael Thompson adjusted the rearview mirror. He was a man of few words, not because he was shy, but because the world had taught him that silence was often the only way to survive. His passenger? Julia Whitmore, National Security Advisor, scheduled to brief the president in less than 2 hours. Michael had been her trusted driver for 4 years. He'd survived late-night convoys, protester blockades, and even a near miss during a diplomatic visit to New York. But nothing, not even those moments, could have prepared him for what was about to happen. Just past mile marker 34, flashing lights erupted behind them. Blue, red, blue again. "Do they know who you are?" Michael asked, calmly checking the mirror. Julia didn't even look up from her phone. "They'll figure it out. Just pull over." Michael did. 2 white officers emerged, hands already resting on their holsters. One was tall and rigid, the other shorter with an unlit cigarette dangling from his lips. Michael rolled down the window, hands on the wheel. "Morning, officers. Something wrong?" "License and registration. This is a government vehicle. I'm the driver for Michael." "Don't care who you're driving. Out of the car. Now." Julia finally looked up. "Excuse me, I'm a federal official. If you just—" "Ma'am, stay seated," barked the taller officer, reaching toward his weapon. "We're not talking to you." Michael hesitated. "I can show you ID." "Out of the car." The shorter cop slammed his fist on the hood. Michael exhaled, long and slow. "I'm reaching for my wallet in my jacket." The taller officer yanked the door open. Too slow. Before he could unbuckle his seatbelt, Michael was ripped out and shoved against the car. Julia screamed. "Are you out of your minds? He's not just my driver. He's a federal employee. Call your supervisor." But they weren't listening. Not to her. Not to anyone. Michael hit the ground. His cheek pressed against hot asphalt. Somewhere between the shouts he heard it. "Could have stolen the car. Looks like he's hiding something. Drug money, maybe." He said nothing. He'd learned early in life that speaking could get a black man killed faster than silence. Minutes passed. Or maybe it was seconds. Time blurred when humiliation took the wheel. Eventually, Julia stormed out of the car, badge in hand. "This is unlawful detention," she shouted, filming everything. "I want badge numbers. Both of you." The shorter cop froze. The taller one blinked. Julia stepped between them and Michael. "You just laid hands on a federal worker in a government vehicle without cause. He's not just my driver. He's a former Air Force pilot, and he holds a high-level clearance. You just made a very dangerous mistake." Silence. It was the kind that vibrated in your bones, the kind that came right before lawsuits, hearings, and headlines. The officers mumbled excuses. "Routine stop," they said. "Suspicious behavior," they claimed. Michael stood, slow and proud. His lip was split, his dignity bruised, but his eyes were calm. "You know what hurts most?" he asked Julia later, after the officers slinked away and she insisted he go to the hospital. "It's not the way they dragged me, not even the way they ignored your badge. It's knowing they didn't see a man, just a threat." Julia didn't speak. She knew words weren't enough anymore. Later that day she gave her presidential briefing. But that night, she made one more call, not to the White House, to a journalist, to a lawyer, to Michael's wife. Because the world needed to hear what happened. And Michael was done being silent. 3 days later, Michael sat quietly at his kitchen table. His hands, the same ones that used to steer fighter jets through enemy airspace, trembled as he held his coffee mug. Not from fear, from something deeper. Wounds of the body heal, but what about wounds you can't see? His wife Renee placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "They're calling again," she whispered. "CNN, BBC, even Al Jazeera. Everyone wants to talk to you." Michael didn't move. "I didn't do anything." Renee sat across from him. "Exactly." Silence again. The kind that fills a room after too many truths have been swallowed whole. That night, Julia called. Not from her White House office, from her home, with her voice low and urgent. "I've spoken to the Inspector General," she said. "The footage is being reviewed. Internal Affairs wants your statement. And Michael, the president knows." Michael laughed, bitter, tired. "Now he knows, because I got slammed into the ground in front of his advisor?" "No," she replied softly, "because I made him watch the body cam." Michael sat up. "What?" "I forced it onto the agenda this morning," she said. "I told them if they ignored it, I'd go public. Fully, on record. And I'm not the only one. There are others." Something shifted in Michael's chest. A flicker. "Hope? No, too soon. Internal Affairs wants to meet you tomorrow," she said. "They're bringing in both officers for questioning." Michael agreed, not because he believed in justice, but because he owed it to the quiet boy inside him who had learned to lower his gaze every time a uniform walked by. The hearing room was cold and small. Across the table sat the two officers. No badges today, just navy blue suits and faces that couldn't decide if they were embarrassed or annoyed. The lead investigator, a black woman named Detective Price, tapped her pen. "Mr. Thompson, when the officers ordered you out of the car, what did you feel was happening?" Michael met her eyes. "I felt like I was about to become another hashtag." A long pause. The shorter officer, the one with the cigarette that day, shifted in his seat. "I didn't mean anything by it. We get reports all the time of stolen government vehicles. Did you run the plates?" Price interrupted. He hesitated. "No, we were going to. Before or after pulling a gun on a federal employee." Silence. The taller officer spoke next. "We followed procedure." Price turned to him. "Is that why you ignored the badge held out by a national security advisor?" Another pause. "I didn't recognize her face. Didn't recognize her black driver either," Michael muttered. The room tightened. "I've spent my whole life in service," Michael continued. "From piloting in Kandahar to driving White House officials. I've got clearances that most people in this building would dream of. And yet, in your eyes, I was just a threat." Price nodded slowly. "Thank you, Mr. Thompson. That's all for now." But it wasn't over. That evening, Julia appeared on live television. Her voice was steady. Her expression was fire. "I was in that vehicle," she said to millions of viewers. "And I watched a man be brutalized, not for what he did, but for how he looked. I work in national security, but there's no threat greater to America than the fear we carry in our own neighborhoods. We cannot claim to stand for freedom abroad when we allow racism to thrive at home." The clip went viral, and for once, it didn't vanish. The Department of Justice launched a full investigation. The police chief issued a public apology. The officers were suspended without pay pending review. But more importantly, it changed something deeper. A few weeks later, Michael stood in front of a crowd at the NAACP's annual gala. He hadn't wanted to speak. He hated the spotlight. But Julia nudged him forward, so he did. "I never wanted to be a symbol," he began. "I just wanted to do my job. But life doesn't always let us choose our battles. Sometimes the battle chooses us." He looked out at the audience. "I was once taught that silence keeps you safe, that blending in is survival. But I'm here to say, you can be dignified, educated, disciplined, and still be dehumanized in broad daylight." A murmur passed through the room. "But I'm also here to say, we are not powerless. Every voice matters. Every camera matters. Every witness matters. And justice is not a gift. It's something we demand." Applause erupted, not loud at first, but then rising like a wave. Julia smiled from the front row, not because of what he said, but because he'd finally said it. The officers never returned to active duty. One of them later resigned quietly. The other fought the charges, and lost. Michael never drove for the White House again, but not because they fired him. He quit. He took a job as a speaker, visiting schools, veteran groups and police academies, not to rant, not to blame, but to teach, to tell his story, and to remind America that sometimes the people we fear most are the ones protecting us in silence. How many people like Michael never get to tell their story? How many stay silent because the world has already made up its mind? What would you have done if you were in Julia's shoes? Or Michael's? Let us know in the comments. We read every word. Don't forget to like this video if it moved you, and if you believe stories like this deserve to be told. Subscribe and hit that bell icon, because you never know whose story we'll tell next.